I don't know if you saw my post about the Hacienda yesterday, and that whole idea of part of the reason I think I get so inspired when I go to those places is that it reminds me how easy I have it in life right now. When you hear the stories of what it took to build places like that have stood for 200 years, when you hear the stories of the heartaches and the struggles that happened to make that still be a legacy to the families that owned it through time, still be providing for those families in some way, or the new owners now. Was it slow? Yeah, it took like 10 years to build some of those buildings. It took who knows how many people involved and how much resources way back in the day. And yet they did it. Like they knew it was worth it. And we're still reaping benefits of it. We're still being inspired by it. If it's worth it, then the hard is worth it. If it's worth it, then the slow is worth it. If you're going to build something that's going to last centuries and continue to inspire and instruct people, it's going to be hard. It's going to be slow. You're not going to be famous in your lifetime, most likely. And somebody in the future is depending on you doing this still. I don't know if I ever put it into words just that way before, but that's kind of what the Lord's been working on me this week. And it feels like things are slow, and it feels like things are hard, and it feels like there are hard things, and it's got to be worth it, or God wouldn't have me doing this. If we didn't have hard times in our life, it would be kind of boring. You know what I mean? Like we all
I
wish,
do.
oh, I'm struggling with this. This is hard. That, but what we would have nothing to talk about. There would be no lessons to learn. There would be every one of the Bible stories that mean something to us was somebody going through something hard. Every one of the
And they came
miracles was
through it.
somebody, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the disciples came through the storm. The woman with the issue was healed. The lame man, like all of the stories that were included for our benefit were about people that God walked through the hard times. One of the speakers I talked with or did the session with already this week was, the perspective of God walking me through it, not bringing me through, not guiding me, but walking with me, and just that idea of he's the God of the storm, and he's promised to be with me in the storm and out of the storm. And the storms are what we write the stories about. I don't know if haciendas would be such a big deal if they'd never sat in ruins for 100 years. Would they still be such an anomaly, such a fascination today if they had never gone through that season of ruin and seeming abandonment and decay and whatever? And now they've been redeemed and are being restored. And there's a special draw for those things, just like there is in our lives.
I think as I watch your stories come across, and I love that you capture the thoughts and share them. I realize that this year I've been really silent. I haven't shared my stories, but it's interesting that the people that I talk to say, I just love that you keep showing up. And I'm thinking, I'm nowhere. I'm not doing anything. And yet what little I might be doing, somebody's seeing something, and okay. God's not surprised he's doing this thing, and okay.
Well, and it's the stories that instruct. If
Yeah.
we didn't tell the stories we went to the one hacienda and they were like, we don't have a story for you. I was like, I want a tour. He's like, of Merida? I was like, no, of the hacienda I paid to stay at overnight, and nobody knew the history. Nobody. We finally found one of the pool caretakers that had been there for 8 or 9 years and knew something about the history, but at the front desk, we're just here to give you a fancy place to stay overnight and take your money for your food,
Oh,
like,
wow.
and I was like, what a shame that the stories have been lost. Like they didn't know the date of the founding of the place. They didn't know the original owners' names. Like we've got to be writing those stories, or there is nothing to instruct the future generations. They'll see the rocks and they'll ask the questions, but there will be no one there to tell them what God did.
Wow, Katie. Wow. You need to snippet that out and you need to share that. No,
I
that's
may.
huge. Yeah.
Another house we went to had a book published, and the book told the story, and it told the names, and it told the dates, and it talked about some of the specific items in the house even, and who gave it and what it was for and how they used it and like the significance of it. This is how we pass on the appreciation for what people have built and what it meant for them and what life was like, right? And it got me thinking even about our house and like the special stories of the tiles that we had to get rebuilt. And and so I started making notes about some of those things. I've got some pieces that my grandma, who died when Kiersey was born 15 years ago, that she gave me. They're old-fashioned mirrors to be able to document those kinds of things for future generations, or else no one knows and nobody appreciates. There is nothing to be learned if we don't capture the story somehow. If we don't put the handprint on the wall, no one's going to see it.
Our stories instruct, and if we don't tell them what the stones mean. Okay, I'm going to grab hold of that. I think it's pretty, it's important.
So,
It's important.